How much does it cost to sell on Amazon? Well, this is the most in-depth cost analysis I could put together. I used some examples from my own business and then also got real-time quotes so that you can understand exactly what are the costs of selling on Amazon in 2022. And by the end of this, you will know the likely costs of all different parts of an Amazon venture. Now, some of these are also optional, so I'm going to include them at the end so that you can see, okay, this is my budget if I do include that aspect or if I don't include that aspect. And if you're new here, a big welcome. My name's Dan Rogers. I aim to turn the complex into simple, sharing online business strategies with you. So don't forget to subscribe. Now, this being a cost video, I do want to approach it conservatively. So in some of the fixed cost cases, I'm actually going to account for your first 3 months as a seller because that can be seen as your startup time. But do keep in mind, if your business gets going quickly, it's also going to begin paying for those expenses. So you don't necessarily need every cent up front for those. But let's start right at the beginning with seller account. Now, you can sign up for unified accounts to sell on Amazon, and those hold certain marketplaces. For example, a North American unified account allows you to sell in the US, Canada, and Mexico. And a European unified account will allow you to sell in all of the European marketplaces. If you sign up for a North American unified account, that's going to cost you $39.99 per month. And that would be $120 for your first 3 months. And if you sign up in Europe on the UK marketplace, that's going to cost £25 per month or £75 for the first 3 months. And if you sign up in another European marketplace, it's going to be 39 euros per month. And that would be 117 euros for the first 3 months. So on average here, your professional seller account is going to cost you about $120 for the first 3 months. And a pro tip here, Amazon will very often actually reimburse you all of the fees that you paid for your professional seller account before making your first sale. So once you do make your first sale, be sure to reach out to Amazon and try get those fees refunded to you. And moving on, we get to product research software. So I'm going to cover my 3 favorite product research tools here and the costs associated. We also have partnered with each of these, so you can save by using the links below and pay less. The cost is less. Also, I'm going to go with the annual options. If you're doing this as a long-term business, you probably want to go with the annual options because that makes the monthly cost far less. Let's begin with Helium 10. As you can see, the cost could be $339, $999, or $1999 per year. But if you use our links below, you can see you're going to save on the last 2 options. We're going to cut the cost down to $899 or $1799. And so if you do apply that discount and you go with the platinum plan, that's right in the middle and will give you most of the features you need, then that's going to cost you $225 for the first 3 months. Next up, we have Jungle Scout. And you can see the pricing is usually $349, $589, or $999. But once again, if you use our links below, you can pay $149 for a 3-month period, or $449 or $649, again massively reducing the cost of the last 2. And so on Jungle Scout, if you do use our discount and go with the middle option, that's the Jungle Scout Suite Plus, then that's going to cost you $112 for the first 3 months. And then we get to AMZ Scout. Now, if you use our link below, this is going to cost you $350 per year. And you're also going to get a bonus product from AMZ Scout. And if you do choose this option, then it's going to cost you $87.50 for the first 3 months. So on average here, let's go right in the middle with $150 for product research software for the first 3 months. So now with your professional seller account open, your research software ready, you can begin looking for a product. And during this time, we're going to get to the next cost, which is logo. So while you're busy researching, you're also going to want to start thinking about your brand name, thinking about designing your logo. And I'm also going to link a really helpful video on this up here. But once you do have a good idea of what your brand name is going to be and how you want it to look, you can have it professionally designed on Upwork or Fiverr or a similar site. the cost of doing so is usually going to be between $20 and $100. But for our budget here, let's put the logo cost at $50. Then we get to the next simultaneous task that you're going to be thinking about during doing your product research, and that is trademarks. Now, this is an optional step, but it is something I do recommend. It's going to allow you to get brand registry on Amazon with a ton of benefits. Now, the cost of brand registry is free, but to get into it, you need a trademark, which does have associated costs. Now, the way you register your mark is really up to you. You could even do this yourself by filing for it online with your trademark office. In the US, the standard government filing fee is $250 per class. So you're going to expect to pay that no matter what you do. It is a government filing fee. But if you do it that way, you're often going to wait months for registration, and then only once it's registered can you get into brand registry. Another option here is to use the Amazon IP Accelerator. Now, the main benefit of this is even before your mark is fully registered, you're going to get access to brand registry. You're very often going to get access within 2 weeks of actually filing for your trademark, so before it's registered. Now, the IP Accelerator basically are partnered law firms with Amazon, and the maximum cost they can charge you for registering your mark is $600. But remember, in addition, you do still have to pay that $250 government filing fee. So with $600 being a maximum, on average here, I'm going to put this at $400 for the actual mark registration through IP Accelerator, plus that government filing fee. This is going to cost about $650. But this one is an optional cost. You don't have to do this. So at the end of this video, I'm going to give you a budget with and without this aspect. But let's get back to the main process. You're now going to start looking for a supplier who can build the product that you have found. And this brings us to samples. Now, when you're vetting suppliers, one very important step is to get samples from them to see what are their products like, what is the quality like. So you're going to want to get multiple samples from each supplier sent to you. Now, unbranded samples are usually free themselves. Suppliers won't charge you for them. They often will actually ship locally within China for free as well. But to be conservative, I'm going to put a $50 sample cost here. Now, once you've ordered all of those samples, what I like to do is I will have the suppliers ship them locally to a company called Tiptrans, also in China. That company will then actually consolidate all of them. So they take those packages, put them in one big box, and internationally ship all of them to me at once, which makes it cheaper. And I will drop a link to that company below. But as you can see in the screenshot here, I shipped about 10 different samples. So this was a pretty big box, lots of samples from Tiptrans in China to the UK. And the cost of all of this, including receiving, consolidating, and shipping that out to me, was $150. But that is a lot of samples. So I'm going to put this cost at $100. And so the total sample cost, that is for the samples themselves, if you're charged, but also the international shipping of them, is $150. So once you've got those samples and actually selected your supplier, we're about to get to the big inventory costs. But just before that, once you're dead set on doing a product, but before paying a supplier, I really recommend you list your product on Amazon. This is going to allow you to ensure and have confidence that you can actually sell that product on Amazon, and you can clear any issues well ahead of time. But in order to list this product and create just a skeleton listing, just to see if we can sell this product, you're going to need a product ID. And you're going to want to buy your product ID from GS1. This is called a GTIN. It's very commonly known as a UPC in the US or an EAN in Europe. But the cost of one of these codes is about $30. But that's going to allow you to actually create the listing on Amazon and actually put in the product ID field. Remember, you're only filling out the required fields to ensure you can sell this product. Later, you can build it out beautifully. But if you do want to learn more on this exact thing I'm talking about, you can check out this video up here. But that brings us to the big costs. Let's begin with manufacturing. Now, in terms of the manufacturing cost, I am going to base this on the product type I recommend most for this year, and that is with a selling price between $35 and $50. Now, on average, a higher sell price product like that is going to have a higher cost as well, generally between $7 and $14 if we look at this range. Also, this is referring to manufacturing in China, where the majority of you will be sourcing. And so in this example, I'm going to go with a $9 manufacturing cost per unit. Then the most likely quantities, the amount of units you're purchasing for a higher cost product like this, are going to be 300, 500, or even 1,000 in some cases, depending on how much you change the product. So if you order 300, that's going to be $2,700. 500 units, that's going to be $4,500. And 1,000 units, that's going to be $9,000. Personally, I recommend a maximum of 500 units, particularly when doing a higher cost item like this and on your first order, because that's going to mitigate your risk. So let's go with a 500 unit order here at $4,500. That is our total manufacturing cost. And remember, on this cost, you're usually going to pay 30% upfront just before they start manufacturing and 70% once they complete manufacturing. And when they do complete manufacturing, that brings us to our next cost, and this is inspections. Now, after manufacturing, you're going to want to perform an inspection. This ensures that you get what you paid for and that it was produced with quality in mind, that these products look good and function well. But the cost of this varies greatly. If you use Alibaba's partners, it's going to cost between $118 and $178. But those services are very limited and they're only going to check a certain number of units, which allows a lot of cracks through which bad quality units can slip through. A much better option, in my opinion, is to use an independent inspection company like Movely. Now, if you use our link below for Movely, the cost of an inspection is going to be about $302 as long as it takes one business day. But that gives you a dedicated team to check your inventory. And then some might choose to skip the inspection, which of course would cost $0. But in my opinion, if you are going to inspect your products, you may as well do it right with a Movely inspection, and that's going to be $302. This is an optional cost. I'm going to include it at the end so you can see the budget with and without this aspect. Once the inspection's done, you are ready to ship your products internationally. This brings us to the next big cost, international shipping. So you're going to want to ship your products from your supplier to your Amazon fulfillment center in your marketplace. I'm going to provide guidance on both sea and air shipping from China to the US West Coast.
West side is the best.
Very common one. I'm also going to provide some guidance on local shipping for those of you choosing to source locally. Now, for our product size example and for reference, we are going with a product that weighs about 0.9 pounds and measures about 3 inches by 6 inches by 8 inches once it is packaged and ready for sale. And for reference, that is going to be about 8 centimeters by 15 centimeters by 20 centimeters. And then 50 of these units are packed into one carton. That's our big cardboard box. So we have 50 in each big box, and we have 10 big boxes, 10 cartons. And then each big carton weighs roughly 47 pounds or 21.3 kilograms and measures 23.5 inches by 19 inches by 18 inches. And that is 60 centimeters by 48 centimeters by 45 centimeters. And the reason I'm covering these numbers is they are very important, because once you have those, you can now get shipping quotes. But now we can insert this same data into Freightos.com and gain shipping quotes. As we move to the next part here, the value of the goods is going to be $4,500, the same as our manufacturing cost. And on the next page, we are going to add a customs bond and insurance here to ensure we cover the full shipping cost. And then we gain our quotes. So it would cost $2,950 by air and arrive within 4 days, or $1,337 by sea and arrive within about 40 days. And so for this type of shipment, currently air is twice as expensive. It costs double, but it is 10 times faster. That might make you consider air, but you should not. you should choose C shipping here, and here's why. What you want to do now is work out the shipping cost per unit, because that's going to impact your profit margins. And to calculate this is super simple. Just take your total shipping cost and divide it by the number of units to get your shipping cost per unit. So if we look at air, that's 2950 divided by 500 equals $5.90 per unit. But if we look at C, that's going to be 1337 divided by 500 equals $2.67 per unit, a lot cheaper. And so for the total international shipping cost of our first order, we are going to go by C and use 1337. And I wanted to add a quick mention here for those of you who want to source locally. I recently shipped quite a big shipment, about 3,000 pounds, was about 3,000 units of goods from the US West Coast.
West side is the best.
To the US East Coast.
East side is the best.
So very long distance, and that cost me about $2,000. So conservatively, and considering you're shipping across the entire continental US, you could deduce that a smaller shipment of say 500 units would cost you about $500 to do the same. It is also very quick and should arrive within 2 weeks. And while you're waiting for your goods to ship, we get to the next cost: listing images. Now, once your product enters manufacturing, so just before shipping, I do recommend that you ask your supplier to produce 2 extra units for you and Air Express ship those to you. That way, once manufacturing's done, those quickly arrive with you because they're Air Express, and you can begin working on your listing images while the bulk of your inventory is still being transported. Now, although manufacturers will very often do this for free, we are going to add an additional $50 here, particularly for the shipping. Now, once you receive those 2 final units that are ready for images, you can take those images yourself, but I highly recommend you get these done professionally. Almost everything hangs on your imagery when you sell on Amazon. And I also have an entire video dedicated to this with a great service called Fast Photography, as you can see here. Now, the cost of a full Amazon bundle of pictures is about $175. But if you use our link below, you'll save 10% with them, and so the cost will be $157.50. So our total image cost is going to be $50 for that shipping plus $157.50, and that equals $207.50. Now at this point, you're also going to be building out your listing, but many of the product research software tools we covered also include keyword research. So you can use those along with other free online tools and even Amazon autocomplete to get your keywords and build out your copy yourself. And so at this point, your inventory should be arriving at the warehouse. And it brings us to our next cost, which is launch. Your inventory now arrives at the fulfillment center, becomes available under Seller Central, and you can launch the product. And the cost of launching your product varies greatly. And this is because there are very many methods to launching a product. Now, one that is absolutely mandatory, in my opinion, that you have to do every time is PPC, which is pay per click advertising on Amazon. But there are some other nuanced methods which I'll touch on now. Now, the first one is Amazon Vine. Now, you can enroll your product into Amazon Vine if your brand registered, and this does have a $200 enrollment fee. Then Vine Voices can purchase your product for free and review your product. The next additional launch option is external rebate services. These are by far the most expensive, but also kind of the most surefire way to get reviews. But to use these, you're very often going to cover the cost of your product. So you're basically paying for your own product plus a platform fee, which is usually about $9. So just as an example, if you started selling at $30, and you had to pay that platform fee, that's $39 per unit you move. Let's say you move 20 units through the platform. Well, that's going to cost a staggering $780, but it does kind of guarantee 15 plus good reviews in the beginning. And I will also link a service called Next Level Ninjas below, where you can check this type of thing out. Thirdly, you could actually create an influencer campaign on REBAID. This is going to allow an influencer to promote your product on Amazon Live, TikTok, YouTube, or even Instagram. Now, the most successful campaigns they run are Amazon Live campaigns, and the starting cost for doing that one is $250. As you can tell, the options and scale at which you do each is very varied. But based on the majority, and remember this is an optional cost, so I'll include it and not include it so you can see at the end. But based on the majority, let's say you do either an Amazon Vine launch, $200, or a rebate influencer launch, $250. Let's put this additional launch cost at $250. But back to the mandatory and most important one, in my opinion, is Amazon PPC, pay-per-click advertising. Using this, you can sponsor your listing to the top of customer searches for your type of product. In this way, you're putting it in front of them. It's very visible, and they're more likely to purchase your product early on. But each time they click your ad, you are going to pay a cost per click. So you're paying each time they click. Now, PPC budgets again vary greatly between marketplaces, but also product niches, depending on how competitive they are. In the UK, you might get away with a budget of £20 a day, whereas in the US, your daily budget might be as high as $100. Another aspect here is this is not pure cost, because remember, when you're promoting your product with PPC, that's going to drive sales. Sales end up paying for your PPC and then eventually become profitable. But again, let's be conservative here and say in the first 10 days you're running ads, the sales from your ads only cover 75% of that ad spend. So as an example, in the US, 10 days times $100 daily budget, $1,000, but your sales are covering 75% of that. So you only have to put in $250. So let's add a $250 starting PPC budget here. At this point, you launch your product and you are now selling your own brand on Amazon. Now, let's say your product starts selling like wildfire and you need to reorder much sooner if you are to stay in stock. But at this point, you've only sold about 30% of your inventory. Well, this brings us to the next cost you can potentially plan in, and this is called your reorder buffer. So at this point, you're only starting to recoup your capital because of the growing pains of any new product on Amazon, but you need to place that reorder to stay in stock, and you don't have all that capital recouped from the current inventory. And so for this reason, I always recommend planning in a 30% buffer. This 30% is 30% of your original manufacturing cost on your first order. In this case, $4,500 times 30%, that's $1,350. And there are two ways to do this. Number one, you can just ensure you have that capital up front even before beginning. For others, you can plan to accrue that capital while you manufacture, ship, and begin selling order number one. But you're planning to have that initial capital so you can place the 30% down payment on the reorder. Remember, you don't have to pay for the full reorder, just 30% to get it moving, and then you're still selling order one, which is going to generate you capital to pay the remaining 70% of order two. So a reorder buffer here of 1350. Remember, this one is also optional, so I'm going to include it and not include it at the end so you can see the budget with and without this aspect. So looking at our costs overall, we're going to break this down into the required costs and then those optional costs. Required costs, first 3 months, professional seller account, product research software, and our total there. Then our one-time costs. We have logo, product samples, one GS1 UPC or EAN code, professional product images, and our total here. Then our first order costs. We have our manufacturing cost and also the manufacturing cost per unit. Our international shipping cost, also per unit, and our total cost of goods sold. And if we divide that by the number of units, that also gives us our landed cost per unit, or everything it costs us to make that unit for sale, which is $11.67 per unit. Then we have our launch costs. We have our starting PPC budget, and that one is for the US. And then lastly, we have our optional costs. So you may choose or choose not to include these aspects. We have trademark and brand registry done through IP Accelerator. We have product inspections done with Movely. We have an Amazon Vine, $200, or influencer launch with REBAID, $250. And then we have our reorder buffer, 30% of original manufacturing cost. And then here we have our total on that if you have everything ready right in the beginning. So here are 5 potential budgets depending on what you do or do not include. So number 1, this is if you do all of the required costs but none of the optional costs. Number 2, this is if you do all the required costs but with an inspection. Number 3, this is if you do all the required costs but also Amazon IP Accelerator for trademark brand registry and an Amazon Vine launch. 4, this is if you do all the required costs and also all the optional costs except having ready your reorder buffer. And 5, this is if you do all of the required costs and all of the optional costs, even having that reorder buffer ready right in the beginning. And remember that all of the links and everything I've spoken about here are neatly organized for you below this video in the description. But now that you understand all the costs of selling on Amazon, wait for the end screen. I'm going to link this video on how to list your product properly and this video on how to ship your products to Amazon properly. And before you go, if you did find this helpful, please smash like for me. And if you want to stay ahead of your competition, remember to subscribe to my channel right now. I would love to have you as part of the community, and I'll catch you in the next video.